Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Valen, and this is Apotheosis, the Enchanting module. Today I'll be showing you a whole lot about how you can make previously impossible enchantments a reality, including enchanting your tools, items, weapons, armor, and even blocks. So let's get to it, and first and foremost, we're going to be using our Book of Shadows, and just briefly discussing some of the vanilla changes in the Enchanting module. The enchantability has been changed slightly. Just know that some blocks are now enchantable. The Protection Enchantment and the Sharpness Enchantment. Previously, they were exclusive and could not be combined with some things like Blast Protection or Bane of Arthropods or Smite or something like that. Now, both of these enchantments can be combined with one of those previously restricted enchantments. Shears are now enchantable and can have Unbreaking, Efficiency, and Fortune. And you can actually craft tridents, but this is an inert one, which will not really be useful to you until you then enchant it through a process known as Infusion Enchanting, which is what we're going to be covering a lot of this video for today. And with that, just know that you will need 3 of these different things. You can come back to this section if you need to, but it's at least 20 Eterna and no more than 30, at least 20 Quanta and no more than 50, and the Arcana needs to be at least 35. And you notice that there's like a little area that's kind of like darker in those 2 ones, and here it just needs to be greater than that. So you will have to customize your enchanting setup in order to be able to create a plain old trident. But it definitely beats having to grind for one. So let's cover some of the basics of this, starting with the enchanting table. If you open up the enchanting table, you'll notice that it looks a little bit different than it previously did. It still has the slot for a weapon or a tool or something to go in here, an area for the lapis to go in. And if you notice, there was already lapis in here. It will now hold lapis for you, so you don't need to worry about that. It has the previous information along here, and I have it currently set up so that it will display different enchantments that are going to be in each one, but normally it doesn't tell you any of that beyond the first one, which is very similar to the vanilla setup. But on top of that, you also have a little question mark up here. If you click this, you can then see all the different options that are currently available to you. In this case, I currently have it so that there is a power level. This is the number of levels that you would potentially need to have in order for what is displayed on the right to be enchantable. If I increase this power level up to, say, 76 in this case, and I drag this down, you can see that there are a few more enchantments available. I drag it all the way down to 38. You'll notice that there are a little bit less than what the standard or middle area was before. And it tells you the different common, uncommon, rare, and very rare different enchantments. In this case, I really have this enchanting setup very optimized, so you're seeing a very high level, powerful item. And this is just the number of levels that you'll have to use in each case. And again, you can just enchant it accordingly. By sacrificing 3 levels, you can get an even higher power value, allowing you a little bit more selection to choose from. Hitting escape gets you back out of that menu, but you also have these 3 new bars, Eterna, Quanta, and Arcana. Eterna, as it says here, determines the available enchantment levels. So this is kind of, the more Eterna you have, the more available levels there will be to you, because some enchantments will only become available at certain levels. Quanta will change your power range, and this actually has a secondary effect of rectification. Sounds a bit confusing, but don't worry. Quanta just means that the enchantment will be that much more powerful if you have it a higher number. But keep in mind that if you have a low rectification value assigned to that as well, then you could get some negative versions of these enchantments instead. It's not like there's a ton of big negative enchantments, but it could be that you would end up getting enchantments you did not want on there. Curses, for example. And if you notice on the top left there, it also describes quantic warping. This is reduction potential, 0%, growth potential, 100%. Once again, this is a very optimized setup I currently have that I'm displaying. And this shows you kind of how much chaos there may be in your rolls for getting these enchantments. In this case, it's really, really stable. Now, Arcana allows rare enchantments to be more common, and increases the number of enchantments. So if you notice here when I look, it says that I'm going to get at least 5 enchantments. And if you recall when we were looking over here, that there was a lot of very rare ones, as opposed to some of the other ones being much less, often. Like the very rare becomes common in this case. So having a high Arcana score is really important for getting some of the more difficult to obtain enchantments. Now that's not always to your benefit, depending upon what enchantments you want, but it should still be considered. And you'll notice that it says on the top left there, minimum 3 enchantments. So you're going to see at least 3 enchantments in each of these ones whenever they get re-rolled. Taking the item out of here, all the levels drop down to 0, and there you go. Or as before, you just click on the appropriate bar and you can enchant the tool or weapon or whatever as you wish. Now there are some things that you might be able to infusion enchant, and that, for example, might be an anvil. In this case, you can create an anvil that would have special properties. So it won't break as easily, and it also might split or obliterate certain magical enchanted books. If you notice here, we've got obliteration, splitting, and unbreaking 5. And here we can even get it up to level 8. Enchanting that, I now have infused this anvil with special properties. Let's also toss a book in there with all sorts of different enchantments on it. That looks good to me. So just by hovering over the anvil, I now have a whole bunch of descriptions on there. There are several suggested mods that you might also want to install alongside Apotheosis. They're in the description down below, and it helps you with a little bit of enchantment description in this case. Unbreaking, obviously, your anvil is going to have less likely of a chance for it to break, which you're going to need to do because a lot of the time you're going to be actually placing your anvil and dropping it on things. A couple of the enchantments on here are obliteration and splitting. Looking at splitting, it allows anvils to split multiple enchantments from books they fall upon. So in this case, I have 5 enchantments on here. So let's take this enchanted book, throw it on the ground, and then drop an anvil on it. There we go, and it broke all of those enchantments off of that one book into multiples. So you can see here we now have all of those in separate books, which is pretty darn cool. But let's say that I don't want Fire Aspect 4, I needed a Fire Aspect 3 for some reason. I don't know. You just want to split it off. Well, if I break this anvil, in this case it actually did get chipped, but it still retains its magical properties on here. I can then toss this other book on here that had 4 levels of Fire Aspect. So let's toss it down, drop this on top, and with obliteration, it'll split it into 2 different books, allowing it to be Fire Aspect 3 times 2, just as you would if you're creating Fire Aspect 4. So this allows you a way of reversing your enchantments if you so desire. And no, dropping an anvil on an enchanted item does not get you books splitting off of it. Now, if you do have another anvil, you can actually open up the inventory, take your chipped anvil or other damaged anvil, take a block of iron and repair it, of course at a cost of experience, but then it should help to bring it back up to another level. In this case, from damaged to chipped. Then I would need to do it again in order to make it into a regular anvil and save it. I did get some really bad rolls in this case because it's got Unbreaking 5, but of course, having more levels of Unbreaking is just going to make it that much better. Using your anvil, you can actually combine it with a few other items in order to get even better results. For example, Cobwebs. They act similar to a grindstone, but not quite the same. You won't get any XP back. But combining it with a bit of cobweb that you make with honeycomb or string, you can then use this on an enchanted item and just completely remove it. Now, primarily this just means this is a way that you can get a cobweb without having to silk touch it or use shears or something along those lines. But it's also a precursor to an even better recipe, the Prismatic cobweb. And this can be combined with an item in an anvil to remove curses and not just enchantments. Now you saw before I just put in a regular book in here. There's also some other options. There are tomes. By combining books with a blaze rod in a specific order, you'll get different types of tomes. These tomes will specifically get enchantments designed for a specific tool, weapon, or item. In this case, the Tome of Others will just get miscellaneous enchantments. You've got the Tome of Helmets, which is just kind of like a helmet shape with a blaze rod in the middle. Then you've got this one for chest plates, leggings and boots, etc. And this applies for weaponry and so on. And this will just mean that you can get specific books with specific enchantments that you're looking for. Now remember when I tried dropping an anvil on an enchanted item hoping I would get the enchanted books off of it? Well, the Tome of Scrapping is actually the way that you're going to want to do that. There is some randomness to it though. One, the item itself will be destroyed, and you'll only get half of the enchantments rounded up from the item. So you're going to want to be a bit cautious about that, but if you really see something that you want, perhaps like a sharpness 10, then it might be worth that roll of the dice. Now remember when we were enchanting anvils, there's something a little bit nicer that you also might want to be aware of, considering that you're likely to have a huge number of enchanted books, and that is this, a library. More accurately, an enchantment library. An enchantment library is made from this recipe here, which will be covered a little bit more in detail later on, the different recipes involved, but just know that it's a bunch of ender chests, some infused hellshelves, and an enchanting table. And then a library of Alexandria, which stores an even higher level capacity. It needs to be infused, similar to how we would make a trident or perhaps an anvil in some cases. But it would basically need to take the enchantment library and enchant that up, but it has to have specific requirements for it to actually get there to begin with. Once you've made one of these, you're going to want to open it up and, hey, take a look. We've got all these different enchanted books that I'm just going to pull in here. Luck of the Sea 5. We'll throw that in here. We'll toss in Lure 5. We'll toss in Impalings 8 here. There's a whole bunch of enchantments that you can see putting in. And it's telling you how many points are stored, plus the maximum level available. So if I choose Frostwalker, I can get a Frostwalker out of here. Just by clicking it a few more times, it ups the Frostwalker level because I had tossed in a Frostwalker 3 in this case. So it would allow me to take the maximum of 3 out. But I also had tossed in some others. So I have multiple versions of Frostwalker available to me. So this is one way of like combining all of your enchantments in one block, as well as being able to store and sort them. In this case, I typed in Frost, and you can see Frostwalker is the only one that shows up. So if you want to store something in here, you can either shift-click it in, or you can just put it in this little like arrow to the left slot, and it goes in. If you want to take something out, you click here, and it'll give you one level of it. You can always go all the way up to the maximum, just keep clicking until it tells you that that's it. And I kept on clicking past other things and putting multiple enchantments on the same book. Yes, you can put a lot of enchantments on a book. It can get a little bit crazy. Let's take that out, put it back in, and everything's back in place again. So this is another way that you can also split your enchantments up, but it is a difficult block to make. And if you want to sort things, you can always say, all right, well, I want something for my sword. Looting, Fire Aspect, and Bane of Arthropods. That's what I have available right now. If I wanted, I could also say, do I have anything for an anvil? Nope, nothing's in there at the moment, so I'll need to see if I can find some enchantments. It's just a really nice, handy, useful item to have, and it also saves you a lot of resources at the same time. Once again, the Library of Alexandria just allows you to store a lot more levels to choose. The enchantment library can also store up to a certain level capacity. In this case, it's showing 16. But it's storing 17 enchantments. That's really confusing. But if you think about it, it's just talking about of one specific enchantment. So if you want something to go a bit bigger, like the Library of Alexandria, it can hold up to 31 level capacity of a single enchantment. So enough about all that. Let's actually get into how to make yourself a really good enchanting setup. First and foremost, you should know that you will, of course, need an enchanting table. It has those new changes in it, even if it does look vanilla and craft the same way. Before getting into the regular enchanting setup over there, let's just look at a regular enchanting table with no enchanting books around it. I can put in a diamond sword and still get an enchantment out of it or two. And if you notice, it has no Eterna, some Quanta, and a little bit of Arcana. This changes depending upon the item you put in there. Notice there's a lot more Arcana on this one and a little bit less Quanta. Putting in a stone sword, it drops the Arcana down very far. It's not exactly that it's not very enchantable at all. And because there's no bookshelves around, you're not going to get any Eterna. And there are certain restrictions on bookshelves. For example, a regular vanilla bookshelf will get you 1 Eterna per bookshelf, maximum of 15. So this is your standard vanilla setup plus 1, because I just wanted to demonstrate a little something, and that is that yes, they still harvest just like they normally do with an axe or something like that. But all of the new enchanted bookshelves and different setups that you have for the Apotheosis style do not. In fact, you use a pick, and then you can pick them up and break them and put them back down again. They don't fall apart into pieces like the regular vanilla bookshelves do. But this is your ideal setup for a regular vanilla, enchanting area. That's it. Just 15 of these bookshelves, and that's as high as it gets. If you add more down, it won't make a difference. Let's put this diamond sword in here. You can see that our Eterna is 15 out of 50. Quanta is at 15, and our Arcana is at 5%. Now, if I put down another bookshelf and I click on here, putting that diamond sword back in, it's still going to say 15, 15, and 5. So there is no difference in this case. We've reached our maximum, and that's pretty much it. Vanilla Minecraft done, and you still can get some pretty good enchantments, don't get me wrong. You can maximize the power on here as much as you can try to, but it's only going to be like level 35 is going to be the highest. And it shows you the different level requirements that you could potentially reach on here. You'll also notice that there's a lot of common, a few uncommon, very few rare, and of course, only one very rare. So it won't really do too much to help you out with getting the super enchants that you might find on something like this that just goes off the screen because you've got so many and they're so awesome. So let's go over some of the, side blocks, I should say. You'll notice when I put something like that diamond sword in here that it might tell me the first enchantment that is available. And that's pretty cool. It's nice. It's always been a vanilla feature as well. It usually says part of the first name, and then it won't say anything about any other enchantments. Well, you can actually enhance that a little bit further with Shelves of Sight or Shelves of Masterful Sight. These will give enchanting clues a bonus to it. We will cover how to make infused hellshelves. We'll get to those momentarily, but know that you will need a bit of other materials as well in order to get there. And if I place one of these down on top of a regular enchanting area that it would affect and put this in here, it now tells me, hey, there's 2 enchantments that are potential on here. And if I take this Masterful Sight one, which is taking the previous one and adding on some blocks of emerald, netherite, and some more potions of night vision, putting that on the side here, putting this in place, it then gives me even more. This will give me 2 clues, this will give me 1, and you already have 1 default. So total I could have 1, 2, 3, 4 enchantment clues. But in this case, there's only going to be 3 enchantments on this weapon. So it's only going to show me as many as it might have up to that number. They're really handy blocks, and I recommend you have at least this one in amongst yours just so that you can see some of the enchantments you're likely to get. But there are some other ones as well, like the Melonshelf. Why you would want this, I don't know. It seems like it's just kind of like a joke thing. You just surround some melons, glistering melon slices around a regular bookshelf, and it reduces your Eterna and your Quanta appropriately. Now maybe this is just going to be something to help balance and get your scale to where you need it to be so that you can actually enchant things or infuse certain blocks a little bit easier. But as you notice, I put this down, I put the diamond sword in here, and the Quanta has dropped by 10%. And the Eterna has dropped by 1 as well. If I take something like the Beeshelf, which is made with honeycomb, beehives, bookshelves, and honey blocks, that will reduce the Eterna by 15, and the Quanta will go up by 100%. So if I put this down in an enchanting area, there we go. Putting the Beeshelf down, I then increase the Quanta up to 100%. And the Arcana stayed the same. The Eterna is pretty much non-existent at this point because we have like minus 16, but it's not going to go below 0%. So it's just going to say that there's nothing there. And keep in mind, the Quanta can be useful to have at 100%, but your Rectification, which eliminates the your Quantic warping, is going to remain at 0 unless you otherwise modify it. So how does one actually start beyond this? Because I've been talking about some of these infused hell shelves and things like that. let's start off with some of the beginnings here. We've got your sea shelves, and if I continue on over here, I have hell shelves. They're both similar, but they will progress a little bit differently. For example, the sea shelf is made from prismarine blocks, a water bottle, a bookshelf, and a pufferfish. The hell shelf is made from nether bricks, potion of regeneration, bookshelf, blaze rod. And if you look, it has an Eterna bonus of 1.5 with a maximum of 22.5, and then Quanta plus 1.5. Looking at the sea shelf, it's actually similar, but it's Eterna and Arcana instead of Quanta. You can, in fact, mix these together. Just for reference right now, going back to the vanilla setup, our Eterna can only get up to 15. So this automatically gives us the option of getting these a little bit higher just by adding these different blocks. Now, you don't have to have both of them. You can choose one or the other if you so desire. But putting this in here, you can see that I can get up to 22.5, which is the max of either of these. So by using one or the other of these, it will increase your Eterna, which determines the available enchantment levels available to you, to up to its maximum, which is 22.5. So if you increase it even further than that, you'd need to, well, do a little bit more research. In this case, I have an entire setup just made of sea shelves. Going in here and tossing that diamond sword in place, you can see that we've got the Eterna maxing out at 22.5. The Quanta still getting up there to 15% because it still is going to have some in there, but it is also going to have some rectification issues. And your Arcana getting up to a total value of 50%. Looking at the hell shelves over here, it's a little bit different with the results. As before, I mentioned one had Quanta, one had Arcana. Well, here you go. Here's the difference. You're getting up to 22.5 as before, plus up to 60% with your Quanta, and a measly 5% with your Arcana. So that's the starter for both the sea shelves and the hell shelves, but you can actually upgrade those a bit further, making them infused. Infused versions will glow in your inventory, but not in world. These are some of the items you'll have to actually enchant. So if you notice, to make one of these, you're going to need to actually put it in an enchanting table and enchant it. It will require at least 22.5 Eterna. So if you notice, you'll probably need to have a whole bunch of hell shelves or sea shelves made and either added to your existing setup or just made for themselves in order to make either of these infusions. Then, of course, you'll need to have some Quanta and some Arcana, which your vanilla stuff will probably take care of. So you're likely just going to be adding these on top of them as you're making them. Your Infused Hellshelf is going to need similar requirements, but a bit more Quanta, and it doesn't require any Arcana at all. But you will need at least 45 levels for either of them. Looking at the enchantment bonuses you get from a complete set of just the Infused Hellshelves, it looks something like this, where you can get up to 27. If you notice here, it does say maximum 27, Eterna, and your Quanta will get up to 67.5. Arcana will stay down really low at 5%. Looking at something like the Infused Seashelf over here, it's going to have the same max value as the Infused Hellshelf, but it's going to have a little bit different of stats, and that being the Eterna, of course, maxing out at 27, Quanta maxing out at 15, and the Arcana way up there at 57.5%. Of course, I am only showing you complete setups of just those blocks. These are not necessarily ideal setups, and this is what I'm going to cover at the end of all these different types that we are currently going over. Let's look at the crystalline sea shelves and the glowing hell shelves. They're basically the infused version plus a little bit of extra material. In this case, some glowstone. In the other, some prismarine. And you'll notice that they max out at 30 for both of them, and their Quanta and Arcana increase appropriately and disproportionately as before. Hellshelf in this case has actually got a large value of Arcana. If you notice for the first time, the Arcana is very high on this. Looking at previous things, there wasn't even any Arcana involved in previous versions of this block. But now it's really enhanced it considerably, and you've got a lot of ethereal purity, getting it all the way up to 100%. Not to mention your Quanta's up at 75, and you now have the new max cap of 30. Looking at the crystalline sea shelf, you now have a little bit different of setup where your Quanta is maxed out and your Arcana is not as high as, previously with the glowing hell shelf. So it can get up to 30, 100%, and 65. Now yes, again, you can mix and match these together so you can get yourself a little bit more balanced of a setup if you want, or try and max out multiple stats. It's entirely up to you. Now these next ones are really beneficial, but also have some potential drawbacks. Let's start with the Blazing Hellshelf. This is an Infused Hellshelf with some fire charges and blaze powder. And it gives you a really big buff to Eterna and Quanta, but it does remove enchanting clues for every shelf that you put in here. So if you have some of these little enchanting clue blocks in place, they're pretty much going to be negated for any of these Blazing Hellshelves. If I put the Diamond Sword in here like usual, you'll see that the Eterna can get up to 30, just like before. Quanta can max out at 100%, but your Arcana is way down there at 5% again. So this is going back to the normal for the regular Hellshelves. Looking at the Heart-Forged Seashelves, these have an Eterna max of 30, Arcana plus 10% per bookshelf, and a Rectification minus 5. This is something you might not want to have too many of unless you're going to be offsetting them. So by putting the Diamond Sword in here, you can see we're getting up to 30, 15 with a Rectification of minus 100%. So this is a bit of danger. We've got a reduction potential of minus 30% in the Quantic Warping area. That's not going to be good. You're probably going to get more chaotic enchantments, but your Arcana is going to be really high with 100%. So again, these ones are more likely to be combined with other blocks to give you a better result. In this example, I currently have a Glowing and Blazing Hellshelves mixed together, and with it, if I click on here, put in the Diamond Sword, you can see that I have these both maxed out very nicely, getting us 100%, 100%, and 30 being its maximum because it's a Hellshelf to begin with. And then over here, combining Heart-Forged and Crystalline Seashelves in a mixed setup, I put in the Diamond Sword, and you can see that, again, it's the same thing. We can max out both of these together and get that 30 value for Eterna, but in this case, it's going to have that Rectification of minus 40. So it's going to be a bit more chaotic of an enchantment, but you can actually use the clue bookcases, whereas if you try and use them in this case with any of these Blazing Hellshelves, it's just going to negate them for every one of them. All right, so now let's talk about the big Mamba Jamba, the really good ones here, Endshelves. These are made from endstone bricks, which are just some endstone combined together, but it's also combined with an ender pearl, bookshelf, and dragon's breath. So you will have had to have at least fought the dragon, and hopefully won. It's even better if you have, because you can get some really good stuff as you progress through the end with these bookshelves. But if you notice, it gives an Eterna of +3, Quanta +3.5, and Arcana of 3.5. So it's a really balanced setup with a new maximum of 40. So just having these nearby, with my usual setup over here where everything is in here except for a couple of blocks, putting in that Diamond Sword, it will max out both of these values and almost max out your Eterna. So you can get up to 40 on there. It's really nice. But that's not all. We can go to the Draconic Endshelf. Then we can use this one. Taking that Endshelf, combining it with some ender pearls and one of those dragon heads that hopefully you'd find in the end, you'll get a Draconic Endshelf. But you'll notice it's very different from a regular Endshelf. The regular Endshelf is very balanced with a high max. The Draconic Endshelf, it just gives an Eterna bonus of +5 with a max of 50. So this is the highest level Eterna that there is currently at 50 so far. And it doesn't have any other stats on it. So if I only use just those, it's going to have a high Eterna maxing out, but then the best I can get is just a little bit of Quanta and Arcana because of the tool that I'm currently using, more or less. But we're not done yet. There's still a couple more things I'm going to show you here, like Pearlescent Endshelves. These have a better output than the Endshelves do. If you notice, it's 3 and 3.5. This is 3, 5, and 7.5. But it only maxed out at 40, just like the regular Endshelf. And it is an upgrade of the previous one. You add some ender pearls and some end rods. Done. Again, putting in the Diamond Sword, you're going to max out at 40, you're going to max out these ones, but it'll be a lot easier to max these out, so you don't have to have as many blocks. And this is where I'm showing you a Draconic and Pearlescent Endshelves mixed in this case. So I've got mostly Pearlescent ones around here, plus 2 of the Draconic Endshelves. Putting that Diamond Sword in here, and look at that. It's maxed out, and I still have extra space for more enchanting. And you'd think that that would be it, but that isn't, because remember that Rectification stat that I was talking about? Yeah, that kind of eliminates some of the cursing problems that we might have. So there's actually a version for each one. Starting over here with the Sea variants, the Shelf of Seabound Rectification can increase your rectification by 5%. You want that to be high. It costs you blocks of amethyst, honeycomb blocks, and an infused seashelf just to make one of those to get your 5% bonus. Now remember, if we have something really nice like this, then you can start adding some extra blocks to start offsetting that rectification as well. So there's an even better variant with the Hellshelves, the Shelf of Hellbound Rectification. This increases it by plus 10%. It's a very similar recipe, but it takes the Shelf of Seabound Rectification and just enhances it further with Gilded Blackstone and more amethyst. And if that wasn't enough for you, then there's the Shelf of Infused Rectification. Yeah, these names are starting to kill my volume here. These names are starting to kill my voice. Shelf of Infused Rectification will increase by plus 20% per block. And it takes the Shelf of Hellbound Rectification and adds some purple and some blocks of amethyst to that. So for example, if I go over here and I plonk down, let's say, 5 of these, that would get me 100%. Put in place that diamond sword. We're going to max everything out, including, if you notice here on the Quanta thing, rectification is now at 100%, and there is only growth potential. No worry about warping. Adding a few of these Shelves of Masterful Insight will allow me to see all the available enchantments that might be on a different weapon as well, can make quite a nice setup. Which brings us back to this setup that we started at the beginning of the video. That being said, there is a little bit more to the enchantment, and that's the new enchantments in here. I'm not going to cover all of them because they're pretty much self-explanatory on the enchantment themselves, but the enchantment types are something worth mentioning. Masterwork represents very strong ones that you can only get by Infusion enchanting, which means above and beyond the regular vanilla enchantment stuff. They always require at least 55 final power to receive. Then you've got your twisted ones, which usually have a good and a bad effect, and your corrupted ones, which are more or less like curses and stuff. Berserker's Fury, if you take damage, you'll take more damage and get resistance, speed, and strength. Boon of the Earth, the higher the enchantment level on there, the more likely you are to get an ore drop while mining regular stones. Chainsaw kind of gives you like this way of chopping down an entire tree. Chromatic Aberration allows you, when shearing sheep, to get any kind of wool color instead of just one. Crescendo of Bolts allows you multiple shots from one arrow. So for example, one shot from this crossbow is several. Endless Quiver is the same as Infinity, except it works with magical and potion arrows, so you can use those endlessly. Growth Serum encourages sheep to almost instantly regrow their wool, or at least have a chance of it. Icy Thorns will hit attackers with a slowness effect, and it's only for chest plates. Knowledge of the Ages, when a mob dies and it drops items, instead of items, those will be converted to extra XP, and you get even more for higher levels. Life Mending allows you to mend your tools by trying to heal yourself. It converts received healing to durability. Miner's Fervor allows you to break blocks very quickly, but never instantaneously. Nature's Blessing is for a hoe and allows you to bone meal items at a cost of the durability. Obliteration we already covered. That allows you to break an enchantment down further to its lesser levels with an anvil. Rebounding, when an attacker hits you, it will be knocked back. Higher levels equals farther distance and potentially to the moon. Reflective Defenses is for shields, and it will reflect 15% of the incoming damage back to the attacker. Scavenger gives you an extra possibility for a second loot roll, so if you kill a mob and it normally would drop 1 item, it would have a chance of dropping 2. Shield Bash allows you to do extra damage when attacking with a shield, but it will be at the cost of durability to that shield. Spearfishing applies to a trident. Whenever you kill something with it, it will potentially drop a fish. Splitting, we already covered. It's an anvil enchantment that allows you to split multiple enchantments off of one book. Stable Footing causes the break speed penalty for flying to be reversed, and if you combine it with Aqua Affinity, you can have full break speed when swimming. Tempting is a hoe enchantment. If you have a hoe with this on it and you hold it, if an animal can be tempted with a food type, it will just follow the hoe because it thinks that it's tempting for some reason. Worker Exploitation is for shears. It causes damage to sheep when you shear them, but it doubles all the wool drops. Now, this is doubled after the fortune effect, and if you combine it with chromatic aberration, it will also make that wool be of a random color too. And that about does it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, come visit us on Twitch, click that notification bell. And until next time, folks, I'll see ya.